Soon they will not even remember what it was that began the war in the first place. Reason is forgotten. And the desire to kill and burn takes hold.
We cannot hide in our castle waiting for war to come to us.
We must press what advantage we do have.
And what is that?
Dragons.
Good. To war, then.
Alicent is in King's Landing. Her son sits my throne.
If dragons begin fighting dragons, we invite our own destruction.
There has been no word from Prince Daemon.
It'll be savage beyond all compare.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 3 trailer video. There's a bunch of Easter eggs and references, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, I'm doing videos for all the episodes. Be sure to subscribe to get them. Just starting at the beginning of the trailer footage, we see the Green Army leaving the gates of King's Landing. You notice that in each new series now with House of the Dragon, and even during the original Game of Thrones series, by the time we got to the later seasons, you could tell they really beefed up the exterior shots of King's Landing just to make it look even cooler. You kind of notice if you go back and you watch the original early seasons, you just see them do a lot of like really tight, zoomed in shots. They don't do a ton of really wide exteriors that require tons of special effects. That's one of the reasons why episodes take so long to actually get out this season. They even said that they actually tried to work around that issue when they were making Season 2 because Season 1 had so much more special effects in it, and a lot of that budget actually went to the dragon battles that happened this season, which it looks like we're right on the cusp of actually getting because we're seeing the Green Army march towards what looks like is going to be Duskendale. We get the voiceover from Rhaenys talking to Rhaenyra on Dragonstone. It seems like they're presiding over the funeral of the Cargill twins. May they rest in peace, Auric and Eric. Basically the idea that the Dance of the Dragons will soon be so bad, people will get so pissed off on both sides, have so much bloodlust, that the realm just in general, pretty much everybody, will forget why they were fighting in the first place. Like, what are they fighting over? The Iron Throne? Why did they start fighting? I can't remember. They use the scene in the fields between the Brackens and the Blackwoods as a mirror for this whole concept because of their long-running Hatfields-McCoys kind of feud that they've had for the last many years since the events of Season 1. Way back before the big time jump when Rhaenyra was meeting with all the suitors because Viserys ordered that she had to get married, one of the Brackens made fun of a younger Blackwood who killed him in a fight, causing their feud to begin, which has lasted up to present day, where we see here a bunch of Blackwoods on the left and the Brackens are yellow on the right. The whole idea is that during the dance, they choose different sides, so the Blackwoods declare for Rhaenyra and invade the Brackens' land here. And because you notice these are all younger members of the family, they're all relatively young, they have no idea how the feud between their houses actually started earlier in the timeline, even though it hasn't been that long. This also flows with the whole concept of the season that the showrunner talked about. He said that Season 2 is way more about the kids than it is about Rhaenyra and Alicent, the older generation, even though they're not that old and the kids themselves are in their 20s now, so they're not really kids anymore. But what they're trying to show is how the older generation passed on a lot of their problems to the younger generation and how it affects them, how they react to it, and why things spin up to the Dance of the Dragons. So part of the idea is that this feud started between Rhaenyra, Alicent, Aegon, Otto Hightower, the Blacks and the Greens, but now it's really on their children, and the children become the true casualty of this on both sides, the Green children and the Blacks children. She mentions the desire to kill and burn taking over, also a reference to the dragons, as in burn with Dragonfire, because we're about to see some really big dragon battles between Vhagar, Sunfire, I don't want to talk too much far ahead because I think some of that's going to wait till Episode 4. Don't worry, we will be talking about really big dragon battles, like the thing people have been asking for since the original Game of Thrones series was on. But during her voiceover, they start by showing Criston Cole because the actor Fabian Frankel explains that his character, Sir Trashbag, is just full of hate now and looking for any excuse to let it out. Now, he does feel kind of disgusted with himself for what's happening with Alicent. Like, he laid into Auric Cargill, making you hate him even more. Like, how dare you talk to him about fidelity and honor when you're doing all this? He is now like the most toxic man in Westeros. You notice he's also wearing the chain of the hand of the king now, too. They also cut her speech with Daemon in the middle of taking Harrenhal to mirror his own desire for war. Matt Smith has also said Daemon has not been doing well mentally these last many years, having to sit idly by on Dragonstone, just doing nothing. I said it in my last video, the way that he joked about it, he said that Daemon has gotten fatter, older, and lazier. He misses the action of war from earlier in the timeline, and he really, really wants the Greens all dead with their heads on pikes. So even though he gets into it with Rhaenyra over supporting her claim for the throne and the fact that he's still upset at Viserys for never viewing him as a legitimate heir to the throne, he still supports Rhaenyra's claim to the Iron Throne over Aegon's claim, so he will still side with her, and she desperately needs Caraxes and Daemon because it's just a nuclear weapon. You can't leave any by the wayside. We see scenes of him landing Caraxes at Harrenhal. There's a new scene of Jace as she mentions reason being forgotten. I think just to seed the idea that potentially he could succumb to the same bloodlust that Aemond, Aegon, Criston Cole, now Daemon also have. Like if he starts thinking the way that they think, it could get him killed as well too. Notice the new green banners hanging across the Red Keep. It's the gold dragon sigil, but with 2 legs instead of 4, and the green color for Hightowers, obviously. Rhaenyra uses the traditional Targaryen banner, which is red and black, with a 4-legged dragon. There's a long story when it comes to 4-legged versus 2-legged dragons on the original Game of Thrones series when Daenerys sailed to Westeros, and they sort of remade her Targaryen banner, like they sort of brought that back. There's a canon explanation, but the real explanation for that, like why did it go from 4 legs to 2 legs, because they kind of flip-flopped during the making of the original Game of Thrones show, is that they just decided that they wanted it to be different. Ryan Condal, to his credit though, came up with a canon explainer for that, saying that when they wanted to bring Daenerys' Targaryen banner back, because Robert Baratheon basically ordered all Targaryen banners to be burned after Robert's rebellion, there weren't any examples for Daenerys' people to make a new Targaryen banner, so they were just going based on third-party accounts of what the Targaryen banner used to look like. Thus, they made an error and it was only 2 legs instead of the 4 legs that it should have been. Bit of a weird moment here during the trailer too. In the small council room, notice how happy Aegon seems, especially given that not that much time has gone by since the end of episode 2. He just lost his son, Prince Jaehaerys. Starting to make you think that he doesn't care quite as much about him as he said he did, or at least the way the showrunner talked about the way he cared about Jaehaerys. It does sound like he did care about him. It just seems like his mood is turning on a dime though, like oh, he is super happy to march to war. Really itching to fly his dragon Sunfire into battle. We see Alicent walking through the streets of King's Landing with a couple guards to the Sept to pray more, probably for Prince Jaehaerys and a lot of the other people she typically prays for, also maybe praying away a lot of her sins because she's been boning with Criston Cole so much. That was a bit of a funny moment at the end of episode 2 where she finally tried to tell her father Otto Hightower, I have sinned, and he's just like, no honey, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear none of that. It was basically his way of telling her, I know exactly what you've been getting up to because he's the hand of the king. He's not an idiot, like he knows. But he also really loves Alicent as his daughter, so like he was trying to make her feel better, like no, it's okay, you're fine. Then we see Aegon in his new armor that they made for him. He wears it while he's riding Sunfire in battle, and, really important part here, they attach Aegon the Conqueror's crown that he's been wearing to the helmet. It's a Valyrian steel crown. Really hope something terrible doesn't happen to him in battle and he winds up losing that crown. Then it seems like Rhaenyra is getting impatient. She wants to call for war too. I think just to get to the idea that she is ready to actually make war. We see Daemon going through the ruins of Harrenhal. Most of the outer edges of the castle here are like this, like perpetual decay, because the castle is so massive. It's just way too large, too expensive to keep up. So nobody wants to spend the money it would take to completely make the castle whole. On the Black Council, they mentioned Daemon has not sent word, so they make it sound like a little bit of a time jump has gone by, and Daemon has just been quiet while he's been trying to take Harrenhal. It sounds like the Black Council is worried enough that they come up with the idea to find the dragon seeds from the books, so they're just trying to explain the context for why they search for the dragon seeds at this point when Daemon isn't around, because they probably suspect that something bad might have happened to him, and they know that the Greens are marching for war. We see them with 4 dragon eggs that we saw in the previous trailers, and it's on Dragonstone now confirmed. A red, a blue, a green, and a gold. Notice the scars on the Dragon Keeper here too. They're all kind of like this, like they all have scars like this. She would have gotten those from the dragons themselves, because remember, it's like trying to care for large cats. You're gonna get injured pretty often. We get more of Baela flying Moondancer over the forest on the edge of the bay here. Rhaenyra asked her to patrol this area to look for the Greens in case they made a move, which we know they're doing, so this is probably her getting ready to spot their army as they march along with Vhagar and Sunfire in tow. We see Aegon with the Valyrian dagger, Aegon the Conqueror's Valyrian dagger that has a prophecy on it. Remember, he does not know the prophecy. Viserys did not tell it to him because Viserys did not intend for him to become the next king. Bit of a funny moment when Otto Hightower threw that in his face. Like, Viserys wasn't the person that wanted you to be king. You're king because I made you king. Like, he's basically telling him about the Greens' plot to put him on the Iron Throne. What a way to tell you that your father really didn't care about you that much. And if it wasn't clear, this is the same Valyrian dagger from the original Game of Thrones series, the one that Littlefinger got into Joffrey's hands, who gave to the Cat's Paw, who then tried to kill Bran. Arya then used to wind up killing the Night King. This is just a random scene of Corlys and Rhaenys at the shipyards. We have a lot of scenes there, particularly because of Adam and Alan Hull, which are Corlys's bastards. They'll become bigger characters in future episodes, particularly Adam, who's going to become one of the Dragon Riders, one of the Dragon Seeds. During episode 2, it was sea smoke that he saw flying over him. Then Rhaenyra warns them about the collateral damage of dragons versus dragons in war, and they cut together a bunch of different scenes. Aegon about to leave the Red Keep, the Greens riding through the forest. This is probably that same forest that Baela is flying over, so it might be connected to that scene of Baela here, maybe running Criston Cole back into the tree line. We actually thought that this scene was coming from after the battle at Rook's Rest, which is episode 4, so that's still a ways off. But if we're seeing this here, it might be from before the battle at Rook's Rest. The basic progression of the big battles, like the actual Dance of the Dragon battles, start with the sack of Duskendale, which might happen in episode 3. We got a little footage of that in the previous trailers, but I don't know if they're going to do the speedrun version of that, because they have been known to do that in previous Game of Thrones seasons, where like they'll have a big battle, but they don't show you the entire battle. The way that Ryan Condal talked about it, though, is that episode 4 is meant to mostly be the entire episode just the battle at Rook's Rest. So it's not like a 5-minute battle, it's like an entire episode that's a battle. That'd be like their big WTF mid-season episode, but that does leave a lot of questions about what they're going to do in the back half of the season, because they have 4 more episodes after that. If they're going to blow their wad on their big battle scene in the middle of the season, how are they going to escalate things through episode 8? There's a number of different options for big battles that happen throughout the Dance of the Dragons, a number of big events, like we have the Dragon Seeds. That'll probably happen in the back half of the season. If we're lucky, also because we're getting into the Dragon Seeds, we'll start to see some of the other dragons that we haven't seen before. There are 17 total, I believe, that we'll see through all the seasons of House of the Dragon, but not all of those 17 during Season 2. Just a number of new ones. We've already seen a couple in the trailers, like Vermithor, for instance, but we saw him at the end of Season 1, too. Just based on the people we've seen so far, I know we'll probably see Silverwing. We'll see about which other ones too, because we might also see Sheepstealer. For those of you asking, we did get a brief scene of Ulf White during episode 2. This is him looking at all the dead rat catchers that were strung up around the wall at King's Landing. When the Dance of the Dragons picks up, it seems like he's just a man-at-arms working inside the Green Army. They might change his job a little bit for the purposes of the TV show. Generally, it just seems like he's another small folk living in King's Landing, but because he's in King's Landing, it means technically he's sided with the Greens at the moment. Part of the idea with Otto Hightower saying that Aegon basically destroyed all the goodwill they created with the Jaehaerys' funeral earlier in the episode with the rat catchers, I think they were using that scene with Ulf White to show how he's disgusted by what's happening. Like, he's pissed off at Aegon now, giving him a reason to side with Rhaenyra, just like Hugh Hammer will. But I think one of the reasons why they actually canceled the last 2 episodes of the season, there were a couple reasons given by the HBO people, the Game of Thrones, the House of the Dragon people. But I think the major reason is they actually want to open Season 3 with another really big battle. In the way the timeline of the Dance of the Dragons plays out, there would have been a weird overlap where they would have had to end on a really big battle, so they would have had to have many big battles during the season, and maybe HBO just didn't want to pay for all that stuff. Like, we'll give you 1 really big battle, but you can't have 2. My hope is that when we get to Season 3, they'll go back to 10 episodes per season, but there's only supposed to be 4 seasons total at max, so we'll see how they plot out Season 3 and Season 4. Matt Smith also said that they would start filming Season 3 later this year, so hopefully, like, if they're really, really fast, they might be able to squeeze out Season 3 by the end of 2025. My assumption right now, though, is plan for more delays and plan for 2026 on Season 3, but we do know that they're actually going to premiere Night of the Seven Kingdoms at the beginning of next year, so it's not like we'll have to go an entire year without any Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon related stuff. I just did a much larger video for that Night of the Seven Kingdoms teaser they released, so I'll put a link for that down in the description below. Everybody click here for my full Episode 3 video. I'll update the link as soon as I post that, and click here for my Episode 2 video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.